back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to carry on reviewing this book here, Spectrum Women, which I began reviewing last week, but unfortunately the video ran out on me last week, apologies for that, so I wanted to carry on reviewing it. I took some notes in my, I love this book, I work out this in my sloth notebook, I just have to show that to camera. I work out, just kidding, I take naps notebook with a lovely picture of a sloth on it. So I took some notes in here on this book, so, where was I? So yeah, so carrying on with the review. So to go back to what I was saying last week about this book, I was talking about the problems inherent in lists that emphasise the positives to employing autistic women, or autistics in general. I don't think generalisations can be reliably made about our suitability for employment. I'm saying this, I know, I'm saying this with the full knowledge that this is controversial, what I'm saying, and that particularly in this climate where we should just be this idea that we should just be focusing on the positives, and that we shouldn't actually talk about any negatives or caveats. But I do think it's important actually to have a realistic, well-rounded picture. And I do think there are problems in creating lists and then kind of saying this is the positives of employing autistic people, just as there would be problems in creating a list saying this is the negatives of employing autistic people, for the simple reason that autism is very different in different people. It's not one thing. That's why, you know, my handle on Twitter is Autism's Individual, for that reason, because you just cannot typecast such a diverse group of people. I mean, it is true, you know, we can make great employees, but equally, many of us will struggle in the workplace. We might have positive contributions to make and great skills to offer, but not all autistics, by virtue of being autistic, will hardly ever take sick leave, or will necessarily be workaholics. I do think there is a danger in saying that, in selling autism as being, you know, as making out that autism comes with being a workaholic or ready to take a sick leave, because I'm sure that's true for some autistic people, just as that may well be true for some non-autistics. Possibly it is the case, you know, that it is slightly more common in autistic people than in non-autistics. I do agree that, you know, there's possibly, you know, a subset of autistic people who are like that. I mean, like I say, all stereotypes carry truth within them. You know, all stereotypes carry something within them that is accurate, that is right. It's just that the danger of the stereotype is that it kind of typecasts the whole group as being the same. So just because something might apply to a subset of autistics, you may well be workaholics, and that might be part of their particular type of autism, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for all autistic people, is the point I want to make. So very few, although it's not PC to say this, it is important, very few generalisations about autistic strengths can be made. And obviously that's the same for autistic struggles, but probably even more so for strengths, because strengths are so personal. So, for example, the list of positives for employment says that we can miss things others miss. Now, the reason for this is because autism, generally speaking, favours detail over seeing like the whole picture. That's part of a kind of autistic sort of cognitive style that most autistics will experience, but in different ways. So yes, this does carry truth within it. And for some autistic people, this will be an asset in the workplace. I'm not denying that, because this ability to do that for some autistics will make them really great employees in terms of, you know, finding details of things like that. But it's certainly not the case for all autistics, even though it is generally speaking the case that autistics prefer details to the bigger picture. This isn't necessarily a strength, or it can be a strength in some instances, but it can also come with negatives as well. And it really does depend on the individual. So in my case, I am drawn to details, yes, in a sense that it's more of a case for me that I don't really know what to prioritise, or I don't really know what to focus on. So I tend to kind of treat everything the same, in the sense that I will give everything equal attention, which basically means I'm very, very intense. So, for example, like if I'm reading a book or something, I won't kind of just look for the gist. Like, say, a non-autistic person might kind of be content if I understood the gist, but it doesn't really bother them if I haven't taken every single detail. I will need to, like, take in every single detail. But the problem with this is that for me, I wouldn't say this is really a strength for me, because I am often overwhelmed by detail. The detail can be overwhelming, and I can struggle to spot inaccuracies or even problem solve. I wouldn't say I'm actually that great at spotting inaccuracies, because like, I don't quite know where to look. Like, there's so much information coming at me, it's like I can't really kind of prioritise it. So this is kind of like you're being bombarded with information and you're not quite sure what's relevant and what's not relevant. So while for some autistics this can clearly be a strength, for others it can actually make it very hard for them to kind of problem solve. So it really does depend on the individual. I'm not saying I can't problem solve, I can problem solve. When it comes to like cooking, for example, I think I'm fairly good at kind of like working my way around these problems, but that's because cooking happens to be my special interest. And I think this is actually very important, is that when they're talking about strengths in autism, it's usually connected to our special interests. So if you're really, really very interested in something, that tendency to focus on details can then become a strength, but only under certain conditions. In my own kitchen, this can be a strength, but I wouldn't be able to work around others doing cooking, and then it will become a hindrance, and then I'll be overwhelmed by details. But when I'm cooking on my own, then my ability to look at details can be a positive. So it all really depends, on context as well. It's not like a binary. But I just wanted to make the point that we can be overwhelmed by details, and we can also shut down as well. So it's not always the case that we're always going to be super great at like spotting details, as what the stereotype says, which might be true for some, but it's not true for all of us. I also mentioned previously that some of us are highly verbal, and we might talk too much, not being able to inhibit well and get on with work. So there's a stereotype again that autistic people just go to work and are like silent, aloof workaholics. And again, that's going to be true for some. It will definitely be true for some. There'll be some of you watching this who think that is so me, and that's great. Some autistics will kind of fit into that kind of profile, but autism is broad, and not all of us will. And speaking for myself, if I'm really interested in something, I will knuckle down and do it. But I have to be really interested in something. If my heart's not completely in it, I might well spend too time like yabbering, because I am a bit of a talker, to put it mildly. I do talk. So that isn't quite true that, some autistics will go to work. It is true, and will do the work and will be workaholics. Other autistics might get distracted or not be able to stop talking. We're just so varied. Moving on now from employment, there were other parts of the book that positively resonated with me. On page 149, Kate Ross mentions, with regard to sensory issues, that while she is sensitive to one type of noise, she could tolerate something else in its place because she is in control. This I found very, very true for me as well. In her case, music provides what she calls a sonic barrier. I love that term. A sonic barrier, it's a really good way of putting it, between her and the noise in the office. Now, I would find music too distracting when I need to concentrate. I can't read or do other things while music is on in the background, because music is too random. It's too many different frequencies and different sounds that I would need to try and process. But I do find white noise in the form of, say, for example, a kitchen or bathroom extractor fan, or a white noise app on the internet to block out random unpredictable noise when I'm reading or otherwise needing to concentrate. So white noise is a steady type of noise frequency, such as what fans make, that can help some people to concentrate. Not all people. Some people find white noise. I know some people find white noise absolutely awful and they can't stand it, because everyone's very different. One person once said it was like sandpaper or something. I don't know, she just found it absolutely really hard, difficult. And that was another autistic person. This just shows how varied we all are. But for me, I find that white noise, I couldn't sleep with white noise on. When I'm sleeping, I just couldn't. But when I'm needing to kind of filter out other distractions and focus on something like reading, I find it can be very helpful. One of my main sensory issues, and I've actually realised this quite recently, because like I think because like with sensory issues, it's like you've always had them. Like you don't really know any different, so it's not like you really think about them. They just are. And it wasn't until really I started. It's actually comparatively recently. Actually, I've become more aware of like what affects me and why it affects me, and also how badly I'm affected by sensory issues. You know, in the past, I didn't really realise how badly affected I am because I didn't really know what was going on. But one of my biggest issues, sensory-wise, is that I really struggle to filter. So for me, in my particular case, it's not so much the stimuli itself that is painful. It can be. Certain noises are painful no matter what, like construction work, I really can't stand. It's like kryptonite to my ears. I'd have to walk the opposite way or put my fingers in my ears. It's really stressful. And everyone's got different triggers, of course. You know, certain sounds don't bother me, but they might bother another autistic person and vice versa. For me, I can't stand certain construction works. And also I can't stand random, unpredictable noises like fireworks, which has always been the case. But generally speaking, it's, apart from those triggers, and there might be more, which I can't, you know, there are some more, but I won't go into it now. Most noises I can tolerate as long as they're not competing with something else. So, for example, when I'm going to sleep, I can't go to sleep while there's other noise going on around me. In a different context, that noise would be fine. But when I'm trying to sleep, I can't try and sleep while there is this noise going on around me. And when I'm reading or when I'm needing to concentrate, although the noise itself might not be too aversive under a different context, it's like, say for sake of argument, if I was creating a noise or if I knew where the noise was coming from and why it was happening, but because I'm trying to focus on something else, that noise then becomes really painful. So it definitely is a filtering issue, mainly for me. That's where my sensory issues really affect me, is in terms of like being able to block them out. I cannot multi-focus, or I can only focus on one stream of input at a time, basically. And it's also, the unpredictability of noise and my inability to filter or block it out, as I've just said. So noise that I make and or that I'm in control of is far easier to endure. When I'm expecting noise, I can endure it far easier if I know it has a clear endpoint, if I know that I can leave at any time, when I don't feel trapped or hemmed in, I can endure it far easier. So do any of you find that unpredictable noise is the worst? Because often, you know, with autism, our sensory issues can be quite complex. It's not always the case that the stimuli itself, in and of itself, is aversive. It can be it's often to do with filtering and blocking out, and our problems with our brains just tend to take in all the information, whereas I think non-autistic brains are just better at filtering and focusing on what it needs to be focused on. And obviously this means we can be highly distractible and find it really hard to focus and keep our attention on things, which I think is part of the reason why I struggle so much at school as well. So do let me know. Now on page 164, Becca Laurie writes that people often interrupt her to ask if she is okay due to her looking tired or bored when she is not. She explains that this is due to non-verbal communication errors. Now I can relate to this because people have asked me these sorts of questions before when I'm daydreaming or zoning out. Like I know, like they often say, I find it funny. They call it a resting bitch face, but that is when I'm not like really. When I'm zoning out or like daydreaming, I do tend to have a resting bitch face. But it doesn't mean I'm unhappy or anything like that. It just means that that's how my face naturally falls when I'm like daydreaming. But people can misinterpret it. So yeah, that's happened to me before. On page 168, the way autistics process communication is discussed. It is explained how, when we hear information, in many of us it comes into our ears as words, but then gets translated into the language of our brains, which is often pictures. This translation takes time, so it is almost like being bilingual, leading to a small lag in conversations. Unfortunately, this translation time can be misinterpreted as boredom and not listening. Now this makes total sense to me, because it feels like extra hard work decoding sentences and listening to other people. My cognitive assessment, which I carried out last year, showed that I have a very slow processing speed, and I think that this must be one of the reasons why it can feel so hard taking in and processing another person's words. So yeah, it showed I had a very slow processing speed and also very, very, very poor working memory, which obviously covers things like attention and things like that. I mean, it does depend somewhat on context. like, there are times when I do take in the information and things are flowing nicely. There are other times when I can hardly process it at all. And sometimes I'm processing it fine, and then for a random reason I'll just stop processing, which can be quite annoying. And you have to like ask the person to repeat themselves, and that can be annoying because you worry that you're asking too many questions. But it does feel like quite an effort hearing the other person and taking in the information, particularly when there's other things going on around me. And that could be internal stimuli, internal stuff, like stuff that's going on inside that's distracting, like thoughts and other things, or it can be like outside stuff. So particularly like when you're walking and things like that, and there are like other things going on, and you have to concentrate on that. Or even if you're just sitting down, but there are other things going on, you can like it's so difficult to like focus on what they're saying. I guess again it comes back down to that kind of problems processing multiple streams of information. So let me know what you think about that. Now I'm going to be moving on to video number 2 now, so this doesn't cut out with me. So moving on to the next part of this review.